I played 4 years of college soccer at Navy. I commissioned there. I was 22 when I entered the Marine Corps. So I was a second lieutenant. I was a logistics officer in the Marine Corps. It's like we talked about earlier, right? Perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, perspective is a hell of a drug. I think it doesn't matter.
Perspective is a hell of a drug.
The time to get into women's sports is now. This is a game. It's a game. It's not life or death what we do.
Welcome to Gameplan, a podcast where we're going to be meeting athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders. How they turn their passion into something beyond sports, business. I'm Kaio, Philipe, and I'm going to be your host. What is your game plan?
On this week's episode, Haley Carter.
She's a Marine. She coached in Afghanistan. She built a team that just won the US championship, the best team in America or in the world, Orlando Pride. She's setting that standard from a goalkeeper to a general manager. It's a privilege to have you on Gameplan.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, Haley, let's be real here. You served in Iraq. You coached in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You helped evacuate almost 100 people or 100 people there.
Yeah.
You just won the championship for the US National League, the NWSL for women's soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And no questions that is the number one soccer in the world right now. The US, America invests a lot on that. Today, you are in the world's top country for women's game. So let me ask you, how do you do all that?
Well, you definitely have to have a plan. I think for our team and club, when I came here in January of 2023, our priorities weren't wins and losses.
It was win?
It was not to win. We weren't concerned about what results were.
Okay.
We were concerned about and prioritized creating a culture where athletes wanted to come and where qualified staff wanted to come, where standards would be high, but it's an environment that people want to be a part of, and they're going to have fun.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether you're playing as a young child or you're playing as a professional. Having fun in the game is important. That matters. Everybody wants to have fun, even when it's your livelihood.
You mean for the players or for the people watching?
I mean for everybody. It should be fun for everyone. It should be fun for the coaching staff. It should be fun for the support staff.
Right.
It should be fun for the athletes. We have the best job in the world. And certainly it should be fun for our fans. That's the gig, is entertainment. So we really focused and prioritized on building a culture of high performance, but also where athletes and staff would enjoy being at work every single day and doing the right things and supporting players both as humans and as athletes, and really ensuring that we got those things right. The daily interactions, the daily decision making. It's not this, we didn't do anything revolutionary between 2023 and now. It really comes down to the day-to-day and how you manage one another and how you interact and have conversations and what the environment feels like. When you walk into the training facility at Sylvan, it immediately is a friendly place. Everybody's enjoys being there, and the results have come as a byproduct of creating that.
So your strategy has been have fun, number one.
Yeah.
So that's part of the game plan, and also work really hard.
You have to.
And you were a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
How did you go from a goalkeeper to coaching the Afghan national women's?
Yeah, so that's a fun story. So my last year of playing professional soccer, so I played with the Houston Dash in the National Women's Soccer League. And then my final year in 2016, I was also coaching at the same time. I coached
Right.
while I was playing. Back in those days, playing in this league, the league minimum salary was like $6,000 a year. It was
$6,000?
Yeah,
Six. Like six.
like $6,000.
Is this even legal?
It was below the poverty line at the time. I, at one point, helped athletes apply for welfare benefits. I had a full-time job while I was playing. In addition to coaching, I had a mortgage and 2 car payments and a child. And so, it was like football was the side hustle to the rest of my life.
Was your fun?
Yeah, it was my fun. Yeah, it was. It was. And in my final year of playing professional, I was sponsored by Hummel International. It's a Danish sportswear company for my boots because I needed the support, if I have somebody that would pay for my equipment. And I partnered with them because they were very serious about changing the world through sport and using their sort of sense of corporate social responsibility to make the world of football a better place and to make the world a better place through football. Mm-hmm. And when I partnered with them, they were also in the process of developing the first sort of built-in hijab kit for the Afghan women's national team. They were also the kit sponsor for the Afghan women's national team. And the program director for the team was an intern at Hummel. She had asylum in Denmark, Halida Popal. And my contacts at Hummel said, listen, we know that the women of the Middle East and Central Asia hold a special place in your heart. The program director for Afghanistan, deploying, having spent time
because
overseas.
I
had spent time in Iraq, yes. And, having the ability to impact women and their opportunities to be able to play the game has always been something that's really important to me. So they connected the two of us, and I had a conversation with her, asking her, if you ever need support with the national team, let me know. And about 2 weeks later, she called me and she said, how serious were you about that offer? And I said, well, what do you need? And she said, well, I need a goalkeeper coach. And I was like, check, I can do that. And then she was like, well, and I need help with visas and a budget and logistics and all these other things. I was like, well, I can do that too. So, I started working with them in 2016 and transitioned out of playing professional at the end of that season, and was really fortunate to work with them for a few years. And, those women are incredibly influential in the women's game. If you look at their history and what they've done, they've fundamentally changed the criminal justice system within Afghanistan around sexual harassment and sexual assault in women's football. They fundamentally changed how FIFA navigates instances of the same within the game. And I think even if you look for fans of National Women's Soccer League who followed the league, when you look at the reckoning that we went through in 2020, 2021, I don't think that's possible if not for the groundwork that was laid by members of the Afghan women's national team to fight against those sorts of power dynamics and instances of misconduct in the game. So, when you talk about the influence those women have had on the game, it's pretty tremendous.
Your influence, I bet, right? Because you were there and you were leading then. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I'm generally curious about this experience, because I think that was a lot, right? It was, you go to how many years you lived there?
So it was unsafe for me to be there. So our staff, our head coach, Kelly Lindsay, and myself, we were based I was in the US. She was in Hong Kong at the time. When we arranged training camps, we arranged them in independent third countries. So everywhere where, because that team is a unique team, the way FIFA works, you qualify for a national team if you hold the passport of that nation. And so half of our team was from the Afghan diaspora all over the world. Either they were refugees or their parents were refugees following the Soviet war in the 80s. And then the other half came from inside Afghanistan. So you had to have training camps in places where everybody could get visas.
Right.
And so we trained in Jordan, we trained in India. And so that was how we navigated it. And it was a very unique situation, different than coaching your traditional national team. You had to get kind of creative about
Do you think players in America, they take it for granted what they have compared to what you've seen?
I think there's an inclination of people everywhere to take for granted what they have.
Let me rephrase. Do you think Americans, or we here, or Westerns, we take for granted what we have in our reality compared to what you've seen?
Yeah, again, I don't think that that's limited to Americans or Westerners by any means. But what I will tell you is that traveling and seeing the world and being exposed to different cultures and different environments gives you an unbelievable perspective. And I think many times as humans, we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so I think getting out there and experiencing that and seeing that, it definitely changed my perspective on things. And, I've talk to our athletes about the stories of the Afghan women's national team, and even athletes we have on our team have very, very diverse backgrounds and different stories. And so talking to them about having conversations with your teammates about how they came up in the game and their experiences. And I always say it, perspective is a hell of a drug, because you can find gratitude when you learn more about others' experiences. And when you think about the Afghan women's national team and the struggles that they've faced just to play the game, I get to get up every morning and drive to work, and that's what I do. That's my profession, and it's the same for our athletes, right?
You go to the gas station, you fill your tank, you pay your credit card.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious about this. I think me, like most people who haven't been to the Middle East or to some places there, and what you read on the news and what you see on the movies, how is the reality? Like, you wake up, for the players, obviously, in the soccer point of view, people go to stadiums to see, like, how does that work? Why a little girl would just say, I want to be a soccer player? Because here you have all the media, you have the money that you can make, your passion, you go to school, right? You get to like a scholarship. What drives a young professional there, or 16 years old?
Well, it's completely different there, right? So our athletes, many of them hid from their families the fact that they were playing football.
Women, they have to hide.
Yeah,
right?
they hid that from their families for a long time, and it just sort of took a community of women coming together and saying, we see the opportunity that we get from this, we see the joy that we get from this.
Right.
It really took them banding together and finding opportunities for each other. But I remember on one tournament that we went to in India, the South Asia Football Federation Championships in 2016, we had an athlete who has a sister who looks very similar to her, and they lived with their grandmother, and her grandmother was hard of vision. And she left without telling her grandmother that she was coming on the tournament, because she knew that if she told her grandmother she was coming to this tournament,
they would never authorize her to go.
No. And so her sister pretended to be her for like 10 days.
What?
So that her grandmother wouldn't know that she was actually on a trip with us. There are a dozen stories like that where they've they've kind of tricked their family members, or they said they're going to school, or they're going to a study group, or they're going to meet with friends, when they are going to meet with friends, but they're going to meet at the football house. So I think, and it took other women like Khalida Popal and her mother to encourage young women to come out, and to encourage parents of young women to come out. Even players that are based in the U.S., when I started working with the team, I had to meet with the parents and convince them to let their daughters come and play with us. And
how old they are on average? Like 18 years old, 17?
Just like you'd see with another national team. We had players that ranged from 14 or 15 all the way up until 26 or 27 years old. So a diverse age range, but it's important within Afghan culture that everything is very familial, so that you really needed to get the buy-in of spouses and of fathers and of mothers and of brothers and of sisters to support and to build that trust, that you were going to take care of their daughters, and you were going to look out for their best interests, and that was really important for us.
And they do for passion, obviously, right? Because they love the sport.
Yeah.
They want to. It's a different dynamic than America, I would say, or Europe or Brazil. Yeah. And what happened for you? Like, you were 18 when you went to the Marines, or?
So I went to college at the Naval Academy first. So when I played 4 years of college soccer at Navy, I commissioned there. I was 22 when I entered the Marine Corps. So I was a second lieutenant. I was a logistics officer in the Marine Corps. For quite a while.
And you didn't want to proceed with the career. You many people would just go to politics, right? After.
Oh yeah, politics isn't really my thing.
Right, but that happens, right? Or you just stay, and you stay for years, and you build a career within.
Yeah. And
you didn't want to do that.
No, I've been asked about politics. I've had a few people reach out to me, but it's not my jam. Football is my jam,
And how do you feel like in a league that majority ownership are men, in NWSL? There's a lot of nuances here, right? If you're gonna talk about men and women in soccer, always going to be, or any sports, right?
Mhm.
Frankly, it's just not only something just for soccer. But how do you feel that there is a lot of momentum within the WSL? You have the Amazon deal. You have a lot of awareness into the sport right now.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel for you to be such a strong voice, and at the same time you have all this nuanced approach that you don't get as many fans going to the arenas like you have for men? You have a league that is majority owned by men. How does that feel?
Listen, I think that our chairman is Mark, right? He's a man, and I have to say, men play an important role in women's sports.
Yep.
And Mark is an incredible ally, and this was my first role in the NWSL, and I had interviewed with other clubs, but I came to Orlando because of the leadership here. And because of the interest in the women's game and the commitment to invest. And I think that allyship and that commitment is really important. So, I think it's exciting to see more women owners that are getting into ownership. You look at Michelle Kang, you look at Angie Long, you look at, what's happening in Bay FC. And so I think that's exciting to see. But I also think that the time to get into women's sports is now, right? And so we're at I wouldn't really say a crossroads, but I think that we're in a pivotal moment within the women's game when you look at even building off the momentum of the 26 World Cup, Men's World Cup that's coming to the U.S. and then immediately followed by 2027 in Brazil. And we're already thinking about 2031 coming back to the United States. And, I think all of those events, men's or women's, plays a role in contributing to the growth of the women's game. And, I'm excited on the trend that we're going. And so I want to be really careful about thinking about, having men in leadership positions. I think it's important. If you look at like chief soccer officers around the league, there's many women that are in leadership roles. I think that's really important. We don't have as many women in head coaching roles, and I think that that's something that we're going to need to change and work on. And,
even in WSL, it's like it can be men, right?
It's primarily men.
It's also the
coaches.
culture, right? You think about it. Grant Hill said something very interesting about the WSL. He said it's women's soccer is in the growth phase.
Yeah, I would agree.
And when you have growth, it's growing, and when it's growing, you're growing the culture, you're growing the foundation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 20, 30 years from now, this will be a different reality for sure.
Absolutely. I was in the league.
20, right? Like,
I was in the league in 2014, 2015, and 2016. Right. And I was around for the previous iterations of professional women's soccer, and they never made it past the third year. So I remember being in the league in 2014 and not thinking it was going to make it past 2015 or 2016. So to now be in a leadership position in the league in 2025, that is well beyond my wildest imagination. And if you think about, like I was saying, when I was in the league, the minimum salary was $6,000.
What is the rule now, the cap?
$48,500.
Grew like, it grew like 6-7 times in...
Now, that league minimum is what the league maximum was when I was in the league. And you had a salary cap of like $750,000.
Yeah, so it becomes a career as well.
Yeah, it's a livable wage now. And the Players Association, their collective bargaining, the work with the league, the owners, that the collaboration to make this a successful, not only business venture, but again, career, profession for athletes is, I think, a testament to where we're at in the growth and the potential to see where we've come over the last 10 years. Yeah, to your point, imagine where we can be in another decade even.
It looked like people like Bob Iger, Disney CEO, he just invested in the LA club.
Yep, Angel City.
The Angel City. You have valuations, many clubs are private, they're not public, so you cannot say, but it's very known that valuations are growing. I think there was a study saying that Orlando Pride was, because of you and the players, obviously, were one of the clubs in America, I think globally, the most gained valuation last year because of the championship, all the media exposure. So now, and there is all this momentum, right, with soccer in America. When you see the people that come to the stadium or the fans, the players as well that you get to meet and coach, or guide them or lead them. Do you think this is a momentum, or this is just a hype that might fade away?
No, I think the proof is in the pudding. I think if you look at what's happening across professional women's sports, I think what's happening in the NWSL is a microcosm of what we're seeing globally in all women's sports. If you look at coming out of the Paris Olympics in 2024 and the excitement around that, what's happening with Caitlin Clark and the WNBA, and that's the way that's growing. You look at, we've got professional women's volleyball with the Valkyries now in Orlando, and you look at what's happening in the world of professional women's sports, and people are realizing it's entertaining.
Yep.
It's an entertaining product. It's fun to come and watch. The game day experience is exciting, and it costs as much as it does to go to a movie.
Yep. Or less sometimes.
Yeah. So I
for
think
families.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Gran in that it's in the growth phase, and obviously there's still going to be growing pains associated with it. And but I think the growth we're seeing is at an exponential rate, not necessarily a linear rate, and I think that's what's most exciting about it.
Would you have a club? Would you buy one?
I mean, if I win the lottery tomorrow, it depends. If I won the lottery tomorrow, you know what I would do?
What?
I would go and I would invest it in a youth academy in Africa.
For players?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I think that continent is full of unbelievable talent.
Let's talk about that. You just brought the number one player.
Yeah.
Probably the new, I don't like to say the new Marta, because Marta is still...
They're very different.
Yeah,
they're very different players also.
When I say the new Marta,
different.
It's more about the whole best player and, but I think you're building with Barbara. It's just, and she's doing, right? She's doing a great job, but you were the one seeing that.
I cannot take credit for seeing that. That was a group effort, but what I will say is the technical advisor for Zambia in the lead up to the Women's World Cup in 2023 was a woman named Elisa Cole, who she did a podcast recently on with The Athletic, and I think the podcast was titled like the most influential coach you've never heard of. And
I love the media.
Right. But if you're in women's football circles, you've definitely heard of Lisa, and she's highly respected, and she does not hold punches when it comes to opinions on players. And her being with that team, I think, was influential not just for Barbara, but also for Grace, for Priska, for Rachel Kundananji, who's now at Bay. When she was transferred, that was at the time the most expensive transfer in women's football history. And
was here in the U.S.?
Here in the U.S.
How much was the transaction? Do you remember?
Slightly more than Barbara's. But that happens because she was there, and because we could call her and say, what are your thoughts on these players, and would they translate to the NWSL? And she had actually coached in the NWSL in the early days. She's coached all over the world: Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Antigua and Barbuda. Just has worked in the youth game, has worked in the pro game, has worked in the international game. The woman is a unicorn. But to be able to call her and ask her and get her thoughts on it, and for her to be able to vouch for those athletes was really, really important. And I don't think that she gets enough credit for the work that she has done, because I don't know that we're able to pull that transaction with Barbara off if not for individuals like her. And that transaction in itself was a relatively complicated transaction. And
why is that?
Just the nuances behind it. She had a buyout clause, and so trying to navigate,
she played in China, right?
She was at Shanghai Shangli. So
China likes soccer?
They love soccer. Yeah, they love soccer, and they're state funded for the most part, so they don't have money is not an incentive for them.
Why do you think the Chinese government does that?
Because I think it's important it's a national pride standpoint, right? They value sports very much, and you create a competitive league to develop your athletes domestically, so that when you go to the international stage, you can compete. So we've had several players that have played there. Rafaeli had played in China for quite a while. So I think bringing in Barbara was definitely a team effort. There were a lot of people involved behind the scenes to help us get that across the line. And so I think it's really important that when we talk about it, we give those people the credit that it's due, because normally my name gets associated with it, but there were there were quite a few people that helped me get it there.
And it's interesting you said about Barbara and the whole, those are young professionals. They are 18, 20, 21 years old. There's a lot of talk right now about mental health. I don't know if you're seeing what the tennis players and, all the pressure, social media.
Yeah.
They're, somebody loses and then, they get very depressed and they're being very loud about it.
Yeah.
They're going on and let's be honest, you go to a press conference after you lose a game. Oh, what is, it's even cruel, right?
Yeah, you have to remember that athletes are human. Yeah, coaches are human.
But how do you, in your case, Brian, you run a team that is very multicultural.
Yeah.
It's a melting pot of cultures. You have Brazilians, Zambians, Americans. And they are kids that they are far from home, far from their families in most cases. How do you help preserving their mental health?
You have to meet them where they are, right? Every athlete is different. The needs of every athlete is different. So ensuring that each individual one is taken care of psychologically, physically, emotionally, right? Several of our athletes have outlets. They've got life coaches and they have sports psychologists and they have chaplains that they work with. But really, it's just about giving them the resources and the space,
right?
The space to communicate when they're struggling, the space to be vulnerable if they're having a hard time, and supporting them in that. And I've had a few instances where I've gone on the media and defended our team against some feedback, critical feedback. I think.
Do you call that feedback?
Well,
I call that something else. But
yeah, I'm on a podcast. So
that's interesting because I think those things we can talk about it because the world is a weird place sometimes, especially in social media. It makes you think that there is so much to evolve, right? There is so much education to be done, to be made. And I think with women's soccer, it's very important that this education. I have a 5-year-old daughter, right? The other day she came home and she said she wanted to go to the summer camp for soccer.
Yeah.
And I was like, number one, Orlando Pride is doing a great job, right? So there's a lot of ads in the city.
Yeah.
It's incentivizing little girls, right? Instead of playing Barbie, they want to play sports. Absolutely, as a father, I will support.
Yeah.
And number two, I think it breaks that, maybe that's the Latin culture or the European culture that soccer is for men.
Yeah.
And women have to play doll, right? Why is that? That's how I think this is changing, by the way. And how do you play a role to change that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just continuing to do what we do, right? Like facilitating, well, that's helpful. But I think facilitating the presence of these athletes in the community and the priority is to win. For us, it's no different than men's sports. Like, we're here to win. That's what we get paid to do. And I think that matters. I think that matters from a credibility standpoint. But also, like, women's sports is inspiring to everyone, not just, I have a 13-year-old son, and my 13-year-old son is obsessed with women's footballers. So,
does he play soccer?
He does.
Do you want him to be a player?
I don't care what he does. I want him to be happy in life. But he has a U.S. national team poster that's on his door. He literally asked me to put it up yesterday. And we got it from a match in Cincinnati, and it's got Emma Hayes, the head coach, and several of the athletes. And he loves that. He's excited about that. He pays attention to the women's game when things happen. He's got an opinion about it. And, Barbara at one point tried to bicycle kick once, and he texted me and he was like, you got to talk to her about that. She's got to land that a little bit better next time if she's going to try it. And I said, okay, I'll make sure to pass it along. But I think that it's important that we also recognize that women's football has the ability to inspire everyone, right? Not just little girls. But I do think that the athletes are setting an example. If young women and girls can see what our athletes are capable of doing, then I think that from a self-confidence standpoint, that is going to be a positive thing. But I think it's really important to make that point that it's not just, we don't just inspire young girls and women, we also are inspiring men and boys alike. So,
and it's especially in Orlando, Florida, right? We have here in the Inter&Co Stadium this tribute to the tragedy that happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes about the community, how it evolved, right? When you were in the military, and you look back to where you are right now, was there something you learned there And I'm sure there was a lot of things because the military trained you for business, for life, for sports. Was there anything that you use there to this day that is like this number one?
It's like we talked about earlier, right? Perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, perspective is a hell of a drug. I think for me, this is a game. It's a game. It doesn't matter.
Perspective is a hell of a drug.
Perspective is a hell of a drug. It's not life or death what we do. It might feel like it sometimes,
right.
And it's certainly stressful, and it can be exhausting. It can have lots of long hours, but the reality is it's a game. And, so I think for me, that's probably one of the most important things that I've brought along with me is, I laugh with our athletes. They'll ask me all the time, like, what is the hardest workout that you've ever done? And I'm like, there is quite literally nothing that could happen in professional women's soccer in 45 minutes that comes even remotely hard, like close to the hardest thing I've done in my life.
Which was? What was that?
Oh, man. I have a list of hard things that just made me miserable and go totally internal. But I can think of a lot of things in the Marine Corps that were difficult. But, when you think about, like, again, it's a blessing to get up every day and play this game and put your boots on and show up and do something with your friends that you enjoy. And so for me, I think that's probably the most important thing that I brought. And when people start to get really stressed out about things that are happening and results and winning and losing, I'm just like, is anybody being shot at? No? Anybody going to die? No? All right. It's going to be all right. We're going to figure it out.
I'm sure that's a great incentive for them.
Yeah. You just,
I recently
in a crisis,
came across
you manage it.
That expression bluff. Right, the bottom line up front.
Bottom line up front. Yeah, I use that all the
a
time.
lot?
I do. I use it in emails to ownership pretty significantly. So they know you got to save, Mark is a busy man. So I want to make sure that I'm as efficient as possible when I communicate. So I will tell him at the beginning of an email, this is the bottom line up front. And then I'll give him all of the details on it. So if he can skim. But yeah, that is definitely a military acronym, but it is an effective way to communicate with busy individuals for sure.
So bluff it is.
Yeah, bottom line up front.
How do you see yourself 5 years from now? What would be your game plan? Because I think you're building something remarkable in America, globally. Mm-hmm. And it's rare to see. It looks to me that you're just getting started. So where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
I can't think to next week. Realistically,
we
have a strategy. We've got a vision. But
you wake up every morning because you love what you do. Number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where necessarily I'll be in 5 years, but what I can guarantee you is that I will be doing something in the women's game to make the women's game more accessible, more exciting, more entertaining for fans, and whether that's here or that's somewhere else in a different role, or I can't begin to tell you that. But what I do know is whatever the legacy is that I leave here, it will be positive. And I will continue to serve others. I continue to use my role to make the world of women's football a better place for everybody. So I can't look that far out, but I know I will continue to be someone that others can rely on to make women's football a better place to be.
It already is. It already is an inspiration for everyone. Well, she's building a standard in life, in sports, in business. Haley Carter, thank you so much for Game Plan.
Yeah, thanks, Kaio.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, everyone. See you next time on Game Plan. Game Plan is brought to you by Inter. Nearly 40 million clients around the Americas. You want to know more? Download Inter right now. Stay tuned for more.